Hrrb members, you are live in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the Hillsborough County Historic Resources Review Board meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 16th at approximately 3:02 p.m. We will begin our regularly scheduled meeting. My name is Nico Homan, and I am the chairperson of this committee. We will begin with our agenda, and we will do a quick quorum check. So, Nancy, do we have a quorum today?
Yes, you do, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Sounds great. Well, with that, we'll be moving right along into our regularly scheduled agenda items. First on the list is the approval of our meeting minutes from last meeting. If everybody had a chance to review those, and if there are any questions or comments about the minutes from last meeting. Okay, hearing no questions or comments. Go ahead, Curtis.
A motion to approve them.
Okay, do we have a second? We have a motion from Curtis and a second from Becky. Any discussion on the motion for the approval of the minutes? Okay, hearing no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes. Minutes are approved from last meeting. Bill, James, or Tom, do we have anybody that wishes to make a public comment at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Since we have no public comment at this time, we will move right along into our staff items. So our first item is item C1 regarding the window replacement at 2934 Stearns Road. So Tom, could you just give us a quick overview on that?
Yes, sir. As you recall at your last meeting, you reviewed a window replacement project for 2934 Stearns Road. And you found that the proposed project posed no effect on the historic house. And this is simply the results letter that I send out after, following the meeting. And this is for your information only, no actions needed, because again, you took the action at your last meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about item C1 on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move right along into our regularly scheduled board items. So first item is D number 1 regarding the proposed shed construction at 2934 Stearns Road. I know we have the homeowner present here, but Tom, can you give us an overview, and then we'll turn it over to Lord for any comment as well.
Sure. So this project involves the same property that you reviewed last month for the window replacement. This project would be the installation of a shed in the rear yard. I had emailed all the backup to the board members. If you care to open those up on your computer, or I can share. Let me share one thing that's here, and that is the location of the shed. Let me get to sharing. All right. And there you go. So you should see on your screens now. And you can see where the house is located here in the front along Stearns Road. The location of the shed will be back here in the rear in this orange box. Also, as you can see from the photos here, this is the house. And then this is what the shed will look like. And go back to, on the site evaluation form that was done when the property was added to the inventory, you'll find that the property is rated as not eligible for local landmark designation or for the National Register of Historic Places. It's found that it is typical of the frame vernacular structures that were built in the latter part of the 19th century and is not considered architecturally significant. And with that, I would introduce the property owner, Lori Kuchenbecker, to further describe the project and answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Tom. Tom pretty much captured it. Just looking to add the storage shed to add additional storage to the property. We don't have a garage here, And as common with most older homes, not a lot of storage in the interior of the home. So this shed basically will help us with our storage needs versus, collecting storage outside where it become very unsightly. But that's all the commentary I have about the project. So any questions, please let me know.
This is Becky. Also being a homeowner of an older home, storage is at a premium in these older houses. We also have no garage. And even the closets, where there are closets, are very, very small, so it's an issue. And because they're planning to place it is so far from the house, and it being a temporary style building, it's not like they're building something permanent. I personally don't feel like it has any effect on the home.
I would share that I drove by the house because it's not too far from me. And this is one of the most undiscovered roads in Hillsborough County. It's a mixture of every decade you could get, but it somehow all melds together. And this homeowner is doing a wonderful job restoring their property.
Thank you so much. It's been, just a little background in case it's relevant. We moved down here about a year ago from Wisconsin, and our previous home up in Wisconsin was built in the early 1900s. So I have a little love for the old and undiscovered. The house, when we got it, was the yard was very overgrown. It wasn't very well cared for. So it's been a little bit of a labor of love since we bought it in April, but it's so worth it. And it's a very popular road to run, bike, walk down, and people, whenever I'm out there, they always share like fond memories of this house, are so happy that somebody's actually here showing it some love. And it's really cool because our next door neighbors, her mother owned this home many years ago, and she was even sharing pictures of me of what this looked like way back in the day. So it's been a pretty awesome experience so far. But yes, this road is amazing.
Mr. Chairman, this is Charlie Nelson.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I drove by this house about a week or so ago, and I think where they've decided to put this is actually probably the best place on the property and will not be very noticeable from the main street at all. It's actually going to look quite nice, I think.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, with that, sounds like we've had some good discussion. Any other final questions or comments for our property owner? Okay, so what we are looking for from this board is a decision whether or not the placement of the shed will have an adverse or no adverse effect on the historic resource.
I will motion no adverse effect.
Sounds good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second Charlie Nelson.
Okay, so we have a motion from Curtis and a second from Charlie. Curtis, can you provide a little bit of a reasoning and rationale to the motion as well?
No, exactly what Charlie said. When you look at where they're positioning on the property, it's not detracting from it whatsoever. And they've gone to great extent to make sure that it's something that's going to fit in on the property.
Sounds good. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion about the motion? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed to the motion say nay. Okay, motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kuchenbecker, and I'll be issuing you a letter in the next day or so that you will include with your building permit file for the shed, right? Application, and there you go.
Great. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lori.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right on along to our next agenda item, item number D2, the proposed demolition of the historic resource at 11515 East Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. Tom, could you give us a brief overview, and then we'll have our representatives from the property speak on that as well.
Right. This is a request by the property owner to demolish the house that's on the property. The house in question is on the historic resources inventory, but is not a designated landmark. So as with the previous case, you will be rendering a determination of no effect or adverse effect on the historic resource for consideration of the building official. The house is a wood frame home that was built approximately 1930. The site review that was done in 1998 says that this is a typical frame vernacular structure found throughout Hillsborough County. It is not architecturally significant and therefore is not deemed eligible for local landmarking nor for a listing on the National Register of Historic Places. The material I sent you that was provided by the applicant includes a number of photographs of the existing conditions of the house. And very quickly, the owner states that the house is deteriorated and is functionally uninhabitable, and that is the reasons they wish to demolish the structure. With that, I'd like to introduce Richard Coates, who is representing the property owner in this matter, to provide further details and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Again, I'm Richard Coates, and for the record, I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Florida. This building has become structurally unsafe, actually, and it's become a nuisance, not only for me, but also for the sheriff's office to enforce the trespassing that's occurring in the structure by the homeless population. So this is actually a safety issue, and it needs to be torn down as soon as possible. And I've been trying to do that for the last few months, just going through the process. And in going through the process, I've actually got a citation by the code enforcement folks instructing me to build it down. Because of the delay in going through the process, I actually have a code enforcement hearing a week from today to explain why I haven't torn down the building. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Sounds good. Do we have any questions or comments from the board for Richard?
Well, just that it's an unfortunate situation we keep encountering. It's a historical building, but unfortunately it gets to a point where it's not economically feasible and there aren't other resources available. But does our decision help him in the code enforcement in any way?
So the decision that this committee would render is whether or not it's tearing down the house would have an adverse or no adverse effect on this historic resource. In the past, it's kind of gone either way as far as the decision whether, obviously demolishing a historic resource, the resource is no longer there, so it could have an adverse effect. But the fact that we also take into consideration the current condition of that property and whether or not it has any it's able to be salvaged at all. So that's something that we would certainly take a look to see is, from that perspective. So it's, this committee doesn't have the authority to say yes or no, you can demolish it. We just render whether or not it does or does not have an adverse effect. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I did just a little bit of research on the area and the property, and I could find no particular historical reasons why a demolition would have an effect. So I would say from a historical standpoint, it would have no effect.
Richard, this is Becky.
Go ahead, Becky.
Richard, is there any parts of there that the material in the house is salvageable to be used to a salvage company or something that collects stuff for older homes?
No, the inside of the structure is actually is gutted. It's just the partition walls and the writing floor. There's nothing really of any value in there. The kitchen's been totally stripped out. So it's not.
If there's any main windows, sometimes those can be, sent to salvage.
Unfortunately, when I boarded everything up, the homeless folks started removing the boards and breaking the windows to get into the building. I don't know. I think it really is it's a condemnable situation, and as a professional engineer, I can't, in my capacity as a professional engineer, I can't recommend doing anything but tearing it down from a health, safety, and public welfare.
So it must be in worse condition now than the pictures show.
Yes, it's deteriorating every day. I mean, I got siding falling off the side of the building now. I mean, besides it being unsightly, like I say, my biggest concern is one of the homeless people getting hurt in the building. Which, if that happens, I'm going to have to shift the liability to the county at that point, because I'm responsibility to get it torn down.
Hey, Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Mike Moran, the contractor. I'm representing Richard too in this demolition.
Go ahead, Mike.
If there's anything salvageable during demolition with me and my guys, I will salvage it and use it on another project of mine. If that helps you answer your question.
Thank you.
I think we're all pained with the idea that we don't oppose the applicant, but it's an unfortunate situation.
Well, that is something that we have done in the past. Is if this committee has said that there's no adverse effect with demolition, we have made recommendations to the applicant to specifically salvage those items that may have historic value. So that is something that in our motion we can provide that recommendation as well.
Well, you just gave my motion.
I, as the chair, can't make the motion. So if those are all the questions for Richard and Mike, next up we would be looking for a motion regarding.
Just as you said it, I made it, but you said it.
Okay, so we have a motion coming from Curtis that the demolition will have no adverse effect on the property.
And we salvage anything that possibly could.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
No, I just think we ought to clarify how it reads, that we had no adverse effect, and the board recommends trying to salvage anything that's salvageable.
Okay. And is there, Curtis or Becky, would you like to add a rationale to that as well, a rationale to the motion?
Well, the rationale being that the house is in such a horrible state at this point. And like someone said earlier, it's a shame. I think Chuck Nelson said it, that it's a shame it gets to this point, these houses. And then we're kind of forced to look at the condemnation situations. But it is not got architecturally any great value to it. It's very typical of that area. And it's not able to be put on any kind of historic, reference or anything. So I think that it would have no adverse effect.
Okay.
I would agree with that eloquent summation.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor with a second. Any final discussion on that motion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed to the motion say nay. Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Tom, you want to kind of walk through the next steps for Richard and Mike here? What's going to happen next time?
Yes, Mr. Coates and Mr. Moran, yes, I'll be issuing you a letter in the next day or two. In that letter, you will include with your demolition permit application, and it'll clear the red flag on the property, and then they can process your permit.
Okay. No problem.
That to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, Becky, Miss Perry.
Yeah, I think somebody tried to mention it before we did the recommendation on it, but is there anything we can help Mr. Coates with regarding that citation? He got the citation because this process was taking so long. Is there anything our group can do to help with that?
Well, I will promptly issue the letter. And then, Mr. Coates, if you wish to then forward that letter to code enforcement to advise them then that you have, that the red flag's been cleared from the property, I would imagine they would take that into consideration. But that's all we can do, Ms. Perry, is for me to issue the letter promptly to Mr. Coates to pass along to code enforcement.
Yeah, typically when you get to the point where you're having a hearing, it's either they give you a continuation to resolve the issue, or daily fines start being accrued.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, that's out of our hands. What I will do is when I issue you the letter, I will send a copy directly to the Director of Code Enforcement, Joe Gross. And then whatever steps can be taken there with regards to your board hearing, I'm sure Mr. Gross, will be able to do. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you both.
Take care.
So with that, we'll move on to our final agenda item. Any new business discussed that was not already on the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, sounds good. Tom, do we have any indication from Hillsborough County as far as when these meetings might go back to in person?
No, sir. We're starting to toward the end of this month. We're restarting our zoning hearings, which had been canceled. Those are being done in a hybrid format because they have a quasi-judicial nature to them. And it was found by our legal staff that an in-person component, in addition to a virtual component, was necessary due to legal requirements of the quasi-judicial nature of those meetings. This board, I believe, and I would certainly ask Ms. Takamori for her input. I don't believe these are of a quasi-judicial nature, so it's not mandated there be an in-person component. Other than that, I'm not aware that County Center generally is opening up. Certainly our
From
staff.
another board, I heard September to October is the time frame they're aiming.
Yeah, that may be correct. I certainly haven't been given any timeline as to when we would be back into an in-person meeting. So I couldn't answer that for you with any clarity.
Well, in that case, then we will tentatively plan on meeting virtually, assuming we have agenda items to review in our July meeting. But tentatively, July 21st at 3 p.m. virtually will be our next meeting.
Yeah. And on that point, Mr. Homan, there will be a meeting. We already have one application in. It's for a COA for a landmark and also a grant for a landmark. And I expect, are going to have a second application for another COA for another landmark, and that's a certificate of appropriateness. That other one will not involve a grant. Both of those cases, the board actually has the authority to approve or deny because they are designated landmark. Also, I just want to remind everyone that July is the meeting that new officers are elected. And I'll be sending out a notice email on that shortly, but wanted to give you all a heads up. So yes, everyone should plan to attend our next meeting.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Any other final questions or comments for the good of the group? Okay, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. James and Bill, you can officially end the recording of it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Thank you all. Have a great one.